What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Points. And I know I'm on a little bit earlier than normal, but that's okay, because we have ourselves a special guest today. My guest is Emily Ehman, the former Northwestern women's volleyball player and current host for Big Ten Volleytalk. Oh, and she's also an author for Volleyball magazine as well, so that's definitely something to throw in. We'll be talking to Emily about her volleyball career collegiately and what she's doing currently, and it's going to be a fun time because she is definitely a talent worth noting regarding what she does what she did on the court and what she's doing off the court. She's definitely keeping busy despite all these times, and we're happy to have her on Set Point. And she's also the first guest of 2021 to make her appearance on Set Point. So it's definitely going to be a fun, miraculous, and glorious time. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this glorious Tuesday afternoon. And I am happy to be here talking to you about some volleyball along with my guest today. And as a matter of fact, let's introduce her right now. My guest is a former Northwestern women's volleyball player, having played for 4 straight years. And more importantly, she's off doing bigger and better things as she is the host of the Big Ten Volleytalk show, which talks about Big Ten volleyball, and she's had a lot of great guests on that show, and she's also an author for Volleyball magazine. Ladies and gentlemen, volleyball fans of all ages, give yourselves a round of applause for the one, the only, Miss Emily Ehman. Emily, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Ken. How are you doing? I really want you to talk to another person involved in the volleyball world.
Yep, I am happy to be on here, and I'm doing well, and with you being here, this show is going to be a great one today. So, I'm excited. Are you ready to jump into some volleyball action?
I am always ready to jump in. I cannot wait for the season to start, and I'm happy to, talk a bit about myself and get things going.
We are 10 days away from the women's volleyball season resuming. Without any further delay, let's jump on into some volleyball action. But first, let's get some house cleaning out of the way. First and foremost, these are the opinions and thoughts of myself, Teran Rodriguez, and Emily Ehman, and not the thoughts and opinions of IE Sports Radio, Northwestern University, Big Ten Volleytalk, Volleyball magazine, the list goes on and on. So just in case the anti-fun police is out there, I just gotta get that out of the way. So, Emily, it's all you now. Definitely tell us everything about you and basically who you are, what you do, and basically how you got into volleyball.
Yeah, so I remember the first time I picked up a volleyball. I believe I was in 6th grade. Maybe I was in 5th grade. My older cousin Laura had played for a few years, and I thought she was the coolest person ever. And I'd always wanted to play. So I remember we stepped outside with a ball, and I remember the first time I hit the ball, I hit it right at her, and it hit her stomach, knocked the wind out of her. And I remember coming inside, she was crying. I was talking to my mom and her mom, and they kind of just knew right then and there that it was going to be volleyball for me. And so, kind of started in a little bit early, around 5th grade, started with club in Bloomington, Indiana. I played for a smaller club throughout middle school, and a little bit of high school. And then I moved up to a bigger and better club up in Indianapolis called Circle City. I knew that I wanted to play college volleyball, and the way to get there, you really got to play at a good reputable club with, people that are talking to colleges all the time about you. You're getting seen at big tournaments. And so I really knew that I wanted to play in college. And so I made that transition up to Circle City. I was driving up there about 3 times a week. It's an hour drive both ways. So it was kind of a big commitment for me. And at the same time, I was really involved in track and field. I actually thought about competing in track and field. I'm in college as well. But, I knew that volleyball kind of always had my heart. So I was willing to do that. So I started at Circle City, and then my junior year of high school, I started looking at colleges. I kind of had a different approach to, scouting for colleges and recruiting that other people didn't have. Typically you think these head coaches are calling you directly and, wanting you to go to their schools. But for me, I kind of had a different approach. I knew the schools that I wanted to go to. So my thought process was, I'm going to try to get, an in with those schools, and then I'm going to try to play volleyball. So for me, I grew up going to Chicago all the time. It was one of my favorite cities in the world. And Northwestern was always kind of my dream school. And lucky enough, my high school coach, Eugene Kim, was really good friends with the Northwestern coach at the time. So he kind of set us up. I went on a visit. I had a few other visits planned out east, and immediately from stepping on Northwestern's campus, I knew it was the place that I wanted to be for the next 4 years. So I actually went on that visit, canceled all my other ones, and pretty much committed on the spot in my mind. A few weeks later down the road, I actually verbally committed, but I knew right when I stepped on campus, Northwestern was kind of going to be the place for me. And then, I committed my junior year, and then senior year, the previous coaches that recruited me and that I had accepted a position with actually got fired, and a new coaching staff was coming in, which is pretty nerve-wracking. I mean, usually when new coaches are coming in, especially in college, you have a lot of transfers out of the program. You have people decommitting. It's a pretty hectic time. But, right immediately, our AD, Dr. Jim Phillips, was on the phone with all the parents, guaranteeing our spots are still there, and just reiterated the fact to me that Northwestern was such a home atmosphere, and they were going to bring in the best coaches possible, which, they absolutely did. We had Coach Shane Davis, who won multiple national championships at Loyola, and then Aaron Virtue, a coach with USA Volleyball, Kevin Moore, just incredible coach, again, from Loyola. And, I knew going in that it was going to be a special place, and I don't even think I knew how special it was going to be until I got there. I came in with a group of 3 other women who are my best friends, and just an incredible time at Northwestern. I came in as a walk-on, so I knew going into it, I wasn't going to get the court time that I had in high school, playing every point all the way around, not really coming out at all. I knew it was going to be kind of a big adjustment, and I didn't know how big that was going to be. But regardless of what my role was on that team, I knew that I was going to have to figure out my role pretty quickly and excel at that. And so for me, I had always been a really high energy person, kind of, one of those rah-rah leaders. And so, my first college match, I remember thinking that our bench just was not giving the energy that I had always anticipated, college teams having. And so I kind of took on the role of being, like bench mob captain and bringing that energy for the people out on the court. And so I took that role on pretty heavily. And so I would say I was more of a leader, not necessarily on the court, but off the court. So I was always, first one in the weight room, getting extra reps in, doing extra sprints, making sure I was one of the strongest, fastest people on the team. So when they needed me, I could, jump in and do really well. And luckily, well, I guess not luckily, but luckily for me, senior year, I had been, playing really well at practice, and we had a few injuries. And so I actually was able to start many matches my senior year and play. And I think over half the matches that we had that year, and just a great time for me to finally, get on the court and show what I had been, what I'd been doing the last 4 years in training and kind of behind the scenes. So yeah, I guess that was kind of a good summary of my volleyball career as a whole.
Great stuff indeed. So I need to ask you about Indianapolis, Indy, because I'm a California guy, and I don't know what it's like to be in the Midwest. What's it like living in the Midwest, and what are the perks of living at the Midwest as opposed to living in California?
Yeah, it's funny. You live in California, so you know that there's so much to do. You can go to the beach, you can go to the desert, you can go to the mountains. There's so many things to do. When you're in the Midwest, there really is not that much to do. So sports surround your entire life. I grew up in a college town in Bloomington, Indiana. So Indiana University was about 5 minutes from where I live. So I grew up with just huge basketball family. My uncle actually coached IU basketball for a while and is now a ESPN sportscaster for basketball. And so, sports were always so center to my life and kind of who I am. I played every sport growing up from the age of 2 to now. I think that really just set off my love for sports at such a young age. And, I've known that I wanted to, be a broadcaster since I was about 9. So I think just growing up in the Midwest, I had such a sports-centered mind and knew that once my career was over in sports, I still wanted to be a part of it. So I think growing up in the Midwest really set the tone for, my career path and I guess my life moving forward, which I'm more than happy to stay in sports for, the rest of my life.
Same here. I think it's safe to say that sports really brings the world together, and for me, I just live, breathe, and eat sports. So that's just me, however. So when it comes, yeah. Did you?
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you see a lot of stuff, throughout coronavirus and the pandemic, and you're seeing so much of what these athletes do, outside of sports too, and how related it is to the sports. People, sometimes think politics don't belong in sports, and I won't get into that, but there's so many layers of sports that just bring people together, and it's something that I feel like I learned at such a young age, and I'm excited to be a part of for a long time to come.
It's good stuff right there. So when it comes to living in Chicago, obviously it is sometimes windy, but what are the perks of living in Chicago? Because a few weeks ago, I had Peyton Chang, who is also a Northwestern women's volleyball player, on as a guest, and she told me all about Chicago. But I want to know, in your words, what's it like living in Chicago and being at Northwestern?
Yeah, Chicago, in my mind, I'm from the Midwest, so I'm such a classic Midwest girl, but I genuinely think Chicago is one of the best cities in the world. There's so much culture there. You just walk downtown and there's, restaurants or places that have been there for decades, just little mom and pop places. The food is obviously incredible. I'm a huge sucker for deep dish pizza. Like you said, it is really, really windy. So, living here in the winter is a little brutal. You might have a foot of snow and you got 30-mile-per-hour wind hitting your face. But, for me, I know I'm in my favorite city in the world. And no matter how cold and dreary the long winters get, I have loved every minute of being here. And, at Northwestern, it's about a 20, 30-minute drive north of the city. So, we would come downtown all the time. Not during the season just because of timing, but in the summers all the time, we had to be there for volleyball. And so, you want escapes, and having Chicago right there is a huge perk.
Well, it's funny you mentioned about being a sucker for deep dish pizza. Everyone at IE Sports Radio, when we're not doing shows, we like to talk about which pizza is superior between like Chicago and New York, but any like hotspot places which has like the best deep dish pizza, or are they pretty much the best, all the best? Oh yeah. So there's a big debate in Chicago between Giordano's and Lou Malnati's deep dish pizza. I am such a firm believer that Lou Malnati's is the most superior deep dish on the planet. I think the crust is super good. The sauce is a little bit sweeter. They don't put too much cheese on. I absolutely love Lou Malnati's. It is for sure, I would say, my favorite pizza place in Chicago, hands down. Good to know. And if I ever take a trip to Chicago, I will definitely make note of place and get me some deep dish pizza.
Yeah, there we go. We had the grandson of Lou Malnati actually played on the Northwestern basketball team, and I also was pretty good friends with him throughout college, and so it was fun. Sometimes they would bring back some deep dish and get a slice of that. So that was a little fun too.
All right, good stuff. So back to the volleyball court. When you first arrived at Northwestern, what was it like playing college volleyball as opposed to playing high school and club volleyball?
Yeah, I mean, the first biggest adjustment is the speed. I remember my first practice. We actually were in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center, and I remember my first practice and just being absolutely overwhelmed by the speed of the game. I mean, in high school, I guess especially in Indiana, I'm playing players that are playing in the Big Ten, playing in the Pac-12 at these really great schools, but every single person on the court when you're in college is that good. Every single person on the court was the best on their high school team, was the best on their club team. And you have all those people in one gym, and the speed is just incredible. I mean, how fast middle blockers have to read a block, how fast defenders have to make adjustments during the play. The visuals the setter has to see so quickly before they make a set or get to a certain position. It's just, the speed is such an adjustment, I would say. And then the other big part of that, I think, is just, it's a mental adjustment. You don't have your parents holding your hand and walking you through everything anymore. You're pretty much on your own. Hopefully you have a good relationship with your teammates and your coaches to kind of help you through that. But, you're sort of on your own. You're going into college, and a lot of people who don't play sports in college, struggle that first semester or quarter of college just with the adjustment standpoint. But then you throw, playing a collegiate sport on top of that, let alone for me, going to one of the best universities in the country and playing in the best conference in the country. It was a big adjustment mentally. But, lucky for me, I kind of touched on this earlier, but we had, and, they still have the most incredible coaching staff. I mean, Coach Shane Davis is like a second dad to me. He, is one of the nicest guys, is there for you whenever you need it. I felt like I had a really good relationship with my coaches that kind of helped me through everything. And then just the team. It is, I would say, near impossible to get through 4 years of a college season if you don't like your team, unless, you just really, really like the game. But if you don't connect with your team well and they're not there to support you well and you're not connected, it is a struggle, especially in that first semester of college when you're going through your first season. You're learning how everything works. Luckily, we had a great group of seniors that helped us, guide us through it, and we had great relationships with them. I still talk to those girls to this day, but, I was lucky enough to have a great group of girls and have a great group of coaches to help me through that. But yeah, just, I would say the speed of the game and then, mentally adjusting to college along with volleyball at the same time was pretty difficult.
So you mentioned Shane Davis. You actually took the next question right out of my mind. What was it like being coached by Shane Davis, and what was it like having him as a head coach?
Yeah, I just instantly smiled ear to ear. I miss that guy every day now that I don't see him. I mean, he is just such an incredible coach. He's such a technical coach, and I think, some people kind of overlook that in the college game, but, he'll break down passing from, we'll be passing from our knees for half of practice just to get our platform right. Like, he is so centered on technique and making sure that we have that technique down. So when the ball speeds up, we're able to get it. But he's just a great guy. Like I was saying, it's funny because we used to hear all these crazy stories about him from the Loyola men's team. We were pretty good friends with those guys. They're just down the street from us, but they would tell us these crazy stories about Shane just screaming at them and these crazy punishments for them doing the stupid stuff that they did. But so we were a bit nervous when he came in. We didn't really know what it was going to be like. But he is the most level-headed, just good head on his shoulders coach. He rarely yells at us. So, when he did, we knew we were really messing up. But he was just a great coach and honestly just a great leader. I think the way that he leads the team and even his coaching staff. He really leads by example. He's always doing everything right. He made sure every room we walked in, we left it better than we found it. When we're scouting, everyone is paying full attention. You're not doing anything else. During practice, making sure we're always paying attention, but at the same time, having fun. He was a good coach. Had a good relationship with us, enough for us. We would pick on him. He would pick on us. I feel like I had a pretty good relationship with him that way. I think we really connected. And like I said, I feel like he was my second dad. My dad was back at home and I was with Coach Davis every single day. And he really just showed up for us every day and, make sacrifices, not seeing his family days on end, traveling. And he just overall is such a good guy and such a good coach. That's why I'm excited for this program, especially this season. I feel like they're going to take off just by how hard that he works for those girls.
So obviously Shane Davis is just an absolute amazing head coach. But what about the assistant coaches? What can you say about the assistant coaches, and what were your favorite memories with the assistant coaches? Because head coaches only is as good as its assistants.
Yeah, absolutely. We had some changes from when I started to when I finished. So I started with, I think, associate assistant coach Erin Virtue. And Erin Virtue, she is a USA volleyball coach. She coaches that national team. She would be gone for a week or two in the summer and into the fall coaching that national team. So she is just an incredible setter coach. She played at Illinois, was an All-American there, coached at Michigan for a while. But, she just knew what she was doing. She was I won't beat her on the bush. I'm going to tell you how it is. But also just such a great person. Like, she wanted to help out with anything that you needed, especially off the court. If you needed help with homework, she'd be there for you. She was always there to remind you of stuff that you had going on. And, halfway through, but right before my senior year, it was the winter of my junior year, she actually ended up taking a full-time position with USA Volleyball. And, we were so happy for her to be doing that and, get the recognition that she deserves with USA and coaching that national team and preparing for the 2020, I guess now 2021 Olympics. And so we actually brought in Kristen Kelsey from Michigan State. She was a player there and then an assistant coach, and we brought her in for my senior year. And, when you're bringing in a coach, for me, it just was 1 year. I was like, it could be someone I don't really care about. And, I only have 1 year left. So, why kind of build a relationship with her? But I was actually one of the people who she met on her visit here to kind of get to know everyone. And I just instantly clicked with her. Our personalities just aligned so well. Even to this day, I've been out of volleyball for over a year now. And, we still talk all the time. She is just one of the most incredible, definitely the most competitive person I think I've ever met. Kristen will play with us on the other side of the net when we need a setter. She's out there diving left and right with no knee pads on, just talking crap across the net. Just one of those coaches that you just love to have in the gym. So competitive and just such a great coach overall. And then the other assistant that we had actually throughout my 4 years there was Kevin Moore. And there, I would say, is not a better coach for, to be like a dad figure than Kevin Moore. When they announced that he would be leaving the program last summer, I wasn't even in the program anymore. And, I started crying. This man taught me so much about the game, taught me so much about life and accountability and, how to be a good teammate and how, of course, how to be a good passer. He was our passing coach, and he also was our scouting coach. And he would stay up all night putting together a scout, looking through film, meeting with anyone whenever they had any questions, whether it was, at a normal time or not. He was definitely a go-to for me. And, I'm happy for him, what he's doing now. He just moved back out east to be with his family. But I just had the most incredible slew of coaches during my time there. And it's not something that I would say, it's not that normal to love all of your coaches so much, but I definitely through my 4 years, I I loved all my coaches, and I had such good relationships with them. And I think it's just a testament to, Coach Davis and the people that, he was able to hire to have such good relationships with everyone and to be such good coaches at the same time.
You talked about Kristen Kelsey and how competitive she was. Do you think she got that competitiveness from Michigan State, which is from the ever so competitive Big Ten?
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I think she was just born that way. She is, I swear to God, the most competitive person I've ever met. We would be playing and, she'd be diving and like ripped her $100 leggings and just want to keep going and getting just bruises all over her body. She is just so competitive. I think playing in the Big Ten, you have to be competitive. She was a player at Michigan State for 4 years, a captain of that team. The Big Ten is the best volleyball conference in the country. I'm very, adamant on that and believe that. And so if you're playing in this conference, every single day is going to be a battle. And, you're going into every game thinking you could win, whether you're the number 1 team or the number 14 team. You're going to think you can win that game, and you can win that game. So, those upper tier teams, they have to be ready every day for those lower tier teams to compete, because they will. And, upsets happen every season. And it is such a competitive conference. Every person you meet on your team or, on other teams is the competitive level is so high and higher than anything that I've seen. But that's how the Big Ten is. It's the best conference. And if you want to win, you got to be competitive.
Great stuff. So now let's get into the Big Ten from your 4 years of playing at Northwestern. So you obviously said the Big Ten is the best women's volleyball conference in the nation. So let me ask you this. Like, every night when you visited, whether it was Nebraska, Penn State, or anything, what was the vibe when it came to, or the atmosphere when it came to the gymnasiums that were packed with opposing teams' fans?
It is so cool. I actually just had a call with Coach Kelly Sheffield of Wisconsin earlier today, and we were talking about the field house up in Madison and, what's it going to be like without fans. And we kind of were reminiscing on, an hour before game time, that place is packed. You have people running in, students for general admission tickets, just completely filling the stands an hour beforehand. Some of these places, Minnesota, Nebraska, Penn State, Purdue, Wisconsin, like they pack their arenas and it is loud in there. To prep for those games, you'd have to just blare music or like blare cheering just to get adjusted to how it's going to be in those stadiums. Sometimes you can't even hear yourself think. You try to yell something onto the court and no one can hear you because the crowd is so loud. It's definitely something I think that is specific to the Big Ten, where you have packed stadiums everywhere you go. And it's just a battle every night. I think this year, of course, will be a little bit different. Obviously, a lot of these schools aren't going to have fans, or if it is, they're pretty limited to usually just family and friends of the players. But, it is a battle every night, and it is loud. Like I said, sometimes you can't even hear yourself think. Those places are absolutely packed. And, we're seeing even in the places or the stadiums that are of the teams of kind of the bottom half, they're really putting a lot of energy and time and money into their arenas and making sure that it's a place that people want to go. So like Indiana University just built an incredible new facility, and their attendance shot up right after. You have Iowa Volleyball just completing their new Extreme Arena that's, set to host an opponent next week at Iowa. And, people are just putting so much money into their facilities now to have them be full of fans and have them be really loud, just because it's hard to compete against those teams where, you're going and there could be 10,000 people in the stands. It is really tough and really, really loud.
So obviously Northwestern has the best gymnasium in the Big West Conference, but when it comes to the other, in probably your opinion, but when it comes to like some of the other teams in the Big Ten, which team has the best gymnasium?
The best gymnasium. I will say they're all just so different. You know, you go to a place like Illinois and you can tell the arena's older, but it has so much culture and character and just like depth to it. Like it is, you know, it's a place that it's not shiny. You don't have your bells and whistles like you might at a Nebraska, but I mean, it is a cool place to play. I think, yeah, like you said, you know, Northwestern just redid their facilities, I think 2 years ago now. And, you know, of course, I think the facilities are the best in the country. But other than that, I would say, I mean, it's really cool to play in Nebraska. I mean, they just put so much time and money into their facilities and playing there. You know, most of the teams now have what we call, I think it's sport court or TerraFlex floors. So really nice flooring that is really easy to slide on, like no slip. A lot better than like wood floors you might be playing somewhere else. But yeah, I would say Nebraska or Indiana now with their new facility. I mean, it is just incredible. I grew up going to their I grew up going to their matches at their old gym, and it is just such a wild step up from what they had before. And you know, the guest locker room is really cool, and everything is just so new now that I would say, other than Nebraska, which is, you know, obviously a legendary stadium, I really like playing at IU last season.
Good stuff. And can I also say this? You mentioned Nebraska. Can I just say that, do you think Nebraska has the most passionate volleyball fans in the NCAA? Because when I saw their game against Stanford, I saw that there was a line going out the door to go in before game time happened. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, like you were saying earlier, there's like I was saying, there's not that much to do in the Midwest. You go to a place like Nebraska, you're either going to go pick corn or you're going to go to a sports game. So, you know, they have just incredibly passionate fans. But I mean, it's something that you're going to get across all the Big Ten. You know, in Nebraska, I would say they have the biggest following. However, you know, when you're talking about passion, I think I might go with Penn State. You walk into that arena, it's the same kind of thing. People line up for hours after, but that place is loud, and it's loud from every single person in that gym. I would say at a place like Nebraska, it fits, you know, the most people, but it's also, you can kind of tell it's a bit of an older population that's going to the game. But I would say, you know, as for most passionate fans, you go to Penn State and you can't hear anything. Every single person's yelling at you. There's a passion there just from the legacy that team has that is just infectious in the entire arena.
I actually kind of knew that Penn State had some passionate volleyball fans. I just saw Nebraska's and I was like, that's debatable. I mean, I can't judge.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it is pretty crazy. Nebraska does. I don't know if they show it on broadcast, but they do a really cool. I don't know if it's called a pregame show or whatever they call it, but everyone has an app on their phone, and it's like a light show before they announce the starters, and everyone holds their phone up, and the lights go off, and it's like a calibrated light show on everyone's phone. And I mean, it is just the coolest thing. Like, they have it down to a T.
That's great to know. And if I ever get a job in the Midwest and I cover Nebraska volleyball, I'm hoping to go there for a game. So, okay, so now let's talk some Northwestern volleyball. So, obviously, Northwestern wasn't the best team, but they certainly weren't the worst. What were some memorable moments you had when it came to Northwestern volleyball?
Yeah, you know, the first one that stands out was my senior night, kind of cliche, but it was also the biggest win of my career, and, you know, the biggest win that we'd had this far with Coach Shane Davis. We beat I believe it was number 17, Illinois, and it was my senior night, so, you know, emotions were running high, but it's a big rivalry game for us. They had just beat us back at their place a few days beforehand, but, you know, it's senior night, emotions are running high. We had never beat Illinois until a few days prior. We hadn't even taken a set off them. And it was just an incredible game. We were playing so well. Our offense was just rolling. Our defense did not let anything touch the floor. And then, to have that be senior night, it was just an incredible game overall, and just a good way for us to go out selfishly. Always good to go out on a win, but for a team that, struggles in the Big Ten just because it's so hard, it was good to have that. And then I would say the other memory that sticks out is actually an off-the-court memory, which I should have mentioned earlier about our coaches, but on our way back from Indiana my senior year, it's about 4.5-hour drive. Our bus broke down halfway to Evanston, and it was like 11 at night. We're all so tired. Everyone just wanted to be home. Our bus breaks down. It's like 80 degrees outside, so you don't want to stay in the bus because it's just heating up. So everyone takes it outside, and we had to wait 3 hours for a new bus to come pick us up. And it was, a majority of the team, along with Coach Kristen, were outside and just having the best time. I mean, we were making TikToks and making up dances and playing, just dumb games for hours before a new bus could come save us. But, it's moments like that I feel like I'll remember the most. Those moments that, aren't necessarily in games, but just the road trips, the dancing in the locker room, the pregame speeches, stuff like that. I feel like I'll take most of that with me, once I forget about all the matches that we played in.
And you said it was 80 degrees or 18?
Oh, it was 80. It was hot. It was our bus was just heating up. It broke down, so we couldn't turn on the AC, so everyone just kind of hightailed it out of there. And we're hanging out in the locker room, hanging out in the car park. And I mean, it was the middle of nowhere. It was like a little sketchy. Everyone was like a little bit scared, and that parking lot was completely dark. But I mean, it's just so much fun having those little moments with your team that you'll remember forever.
Gotcha. Just needs to clarify, but that's crazy. 80 degrees and your bus breaks down. Wow. So anyway, one of the players that you got to play on your senior year was Peyton Chang. What can you say about her, and what was her vibe like coming from Stanford all the way in California all the way to Illinois and Northwestern?
Yeah, I mean, when you hear that someone's coming in that's a transfer, especially a grad transfer, you might think them coming in, they only have one season left. They're really only going to be with the team for a few months. They probably, won't really care to get to know everyone. They're just there to play and get out. Peyton was the complete opposite of that. I mean, she came in and wanted to get to know everyone right away. She was such a great addition to this team, and was such a great addition to the senior class that I was in. She was just a complete light. I mean, she was a really competitive, great volleyball player, but just off the court, she gelled so well with everyone in the short time that she was there. She, they're making TikToks all the time on the side. She has the most contagious laugh. And she really was like the best addition to this team for her 1 year that she was there.
Yes, and like I said, Peyton was a guest on Set Point a couple weeks ago, and she was definitely a treat to have, and she definitely was, she definitely is a talented volleyball player. She played her prep days at Mater Dei, and then she played at Stanford, and then she played at Northwestern, where she got all conference.
Yeah, she was, like I said, great volleyball player. We really needed a setter that year. And she came in and she was that for us. She was throwing up an incredible amount of assists per game. Just a really consistent player, someone that we needed last season. And yeah, she just really fit in well to the team. She got to know everyone right away, was coming in for extra reps. And just a really smart player, coming from Stanford, obviously an incredible program, one of the best in the country. And so having her knowledge of the game and what it's like to be on a winning program, I think was really big for us, just to get our confidence up. Like I was saying, it's a hard schedule in the Big Ten, and, Northwestern for the past years hasn't, shown out too much. And I think we really needed someone to come in and say, hey guys, we can be good, and I've seen greatness, and we can be that. And I think she left a really great legacy for that program moving forward.
That's awesome to hear. And again, she's just I feel she might have changed the culture. I know it's saying a little lot, but I know it's saying a little too much, but I feel she was someone that changed the culture. So I'm glad you got to play your final year with Peyton. So now for the position you play. You play libero/defensive specialist. How tough can that be, despite you not being able to get a whole lot of kills at that position?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard position in the Big Ten. Even in practices, it's hard. I'm going up. I remember last season, one of our freshmen, now sophomores, Temi Thomas-Ailara, just bangs the ball. Like every single time she would go up for a kill, and I was against her playing on the other side, I would get legitimately scared that she was going to take my head off or something. I mean, it's a hard position. You have to be so ready, to move on such a quick whim. You got to read the play really, really well without, you might not be able to see the players on the other side that well, but you need to make sure that you're making the right moves in order to defend that. I think we had really good passing coaches at Northwestern. And so, I think from the time I came in to the time I left, I got just exponentially better, which a lot of times doesn't happen at other places. You see players just kind of go stagnant from their freshman year and not really improve much. But I feel like every passer and defensive specialist that we have gets better every single year. I feel like they get better every single month, every single day. And I think it's kind of just a testament to, Coach Davis's focus on technique and making sure that we're doing the right thing, making the right move, not taking any false steps, being stopped while the players are hitting the ball, communicating on serve receive, making sure that, we know our hitters' routes and so we can be ready for everything. Getting outside the block on defense. I feel like I learned so much throughout my time, which is, one of the reasons why I was able to play senior year is because, I did my time in practice. I learned what, all that I could learn. And, going in, it is hard, going in games and facing players that are, could be player of the year contenders, people like Dana Retke going up for a kill from Wisconsin. And, it's a little terrifying, but you put your body in front of it and, you just kind of got to take it.
Now, you also mentioned beating Illinois on your senior night. Like, how much of a rivalry is it with Illinois, and how much of a relief was it that you beat them for the first time since Lord knows when?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, is everyone has their rivalries. I don't know necessarily whether Illinois would consider us a rivalry, but we definitely consider them a rivalry. Our athletic director, who is now leaving, but Jim Phillips, he would stress every time that we played Illinois, he would come and give us a pregame speech, and he does this with all the teams that he has. But he put such a big emphasis on beating that team down south, and them thinking they're so much superior to us in athletics, and kind of making it a rivalry just to build that up. And usually we play them at the end of the season. So it's, our final showcase of what we can do. And so, beating them was absolutely huge. Like I said, we think of it as a rivalry match. I don't know necessarily if they do, just level of competition wise. We haven't been as competitive in the past, but this season, definitely. I mean, the first time we played them, we took a set off them. And then the second time, they only took one set off of us before we won. So it was a good match. And I think this year was a testament to maybe starting that rivalry up a bit stronger, and maybe them taking us seriously as competitors and maybe thinking of us as a rivalry game.
That's some great stuff. And it's always great to beat your rival or your crosstown rival. So if you had to go back and change one thing or tell volleyball or college volleyball Emily to change one thing, what would you tell her and what advice would you give her?
Maybe, right off the bat, I would say get more sleep. I was sort of a night owl and would stay up super late. But I think going back to freshman year, I think not ruling myself out right away. I feel like I'm a pretty confident person, but volleyball wise, when you're thrown in against other people that, could be just significantly better than you, not to count yourself out. I think I was really comfortable, taking on that role, as I talked about earlier, of, kind of leading the bench and leading off the court. But I think I could have done a better job of not counting myself out right away and really pushing, to get a little more playing time. I think it's still really hard, especially over the summers. I was really focused on internships and building my career and, having to miss a few practices there. But, I think I could have gone in a few extra times and, gotten extra reps. Not that I don't have any regrets per se, but I think just going into it, having the mindset of not counting myself out right away and knowing that you're there for a reason. Everyone is. And so I guess putting a little more focus on the fact that I was there for a reason and I could do it starting out as a freshman.
Awesome. So a couple more questions and then I'll let you go. So so obviously Savvy Simo, if you know who she is, after UCLA got eliminated from the NCAA tournament, she actually got to do sideline reporting. Do you see yourself doing that type of thing in the near future?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember watching her, do the tournament last year, and I was so jealous. I was like, God, that is what I want to do. I don't know what the tournament's going to look like this season. It seems like, at least with, men's basketball and women's basketball, they're planning on doing kind of a bubble format and having it in one city. I would absolutely love more than anything to kind of do a role like Savvy Simo did and, get in there, do some sidelines or, just be some kind of digital host or do some interviews with players in whatever capacity that might be. But, it seems like for the tournament this year, I can't imagine how they would do it in multiple cities, just with how, like I was saying, hoops is going right now. So I don't know. Yeah, I would absolutely love to do that. That's kind of been a goal of mine since I was little. So, hopefully I can get in on that. And I don't know. We'll see.
Hey, everyone here at IE Sports Radio will put in a good word for you if you ever apply for that. So definitely let us know if you plan to.
I appreciate that. I'll be working hard to do that. So yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to Volleytalk or Big Ten Volleytalk, what's that like, and how have you been able to get that off the ground despite COVID and whatnot?
Yeah, so I graduated in March. I graduated a little early. I had just finished up an internship at a news network, and I had absolutely nothing to do. I didn't have a job coming out right out of college. I had things that I was sort of anticipating doing, but, of course, with the nature of everything, those got canceled. And so I was, sitting at home, just hanging out with my mom for, a month on end. And I was like, what, I really need to be doing something. And what else better could I do than talk about volleyball, something I love to do, something I want to spread awareness to. So I started forming the idea and then reached out to one of my good friends and former teammates, Alana Walker, who now is a senior on Northwestern. And I was like, hey, Alana, you want to join me to do an interview, just about yourself and the program and moving forward? And she said, yeah. So we did an interview and it went really well. And I got a lot of traction from that. And then, since then I've had about a dozen other people from the Big Ten on to talk on my show. And it's just been great talking to these players. Something that I really wanted to do is like showcase these players and highlight their stories off the court. So, someone like Dana Retke's an incredible player, Big Ten Player of the Year, just an incredible presence. But, I kind of wanted to get to know her off the court and showcase, things that she did and was passionate about. And that was something that with the coronavirus, we were seeing a lot more of. We were seeing what these players were passionate about and what they were into aside from their sport. And I think it was a good time to do it. And it's a niche that wasn't filled. There aren't a lot of people like us, talking to volleyball players and coaches around the country, talking about volleyball. So everyone was, more than willing to hop on and talk volleyball with me. It kind of, it took off, and then I got, eventually I got volleyballmag.com to start posting some of my interviews, and, being a contributor for them has been great. I started doing more NCAA teams last fall when the Big Ten wasn't playing. But now that the Big Ten is playing again in the spring, I've started it up again. I should have a episode coming out with Coach Kelly Sheffield, like I said, at Wisconsin at the end of the week. And I mean, I'm just happy to get the season going again and to have more content surrounding the Big Ten now. But I mean, it's been a great experience. I love talking to all these players and alumni and coaches. It really gives me, an inside look into volleyball from a different lens.
So how are you able to have all these guests on as when you have Big Ten Volleytalk, or is it just the connections and being from a Big Ten school and then just having those type of connections with those people?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely started out more so as connections. Everyone knows everyone in the Big Ten. So, I started with one of my teammates, Alana Walker, and then my next person I had on was Dana Retke, who was really good friends with some girls from the Northwestern team, shot me her number, set that up really fast. But as I got on down the road, I started being, a little bit more professional about it and reaching out to those sports information directors at each school, saying, hey, I'm Emily Ehman. I have this show. I would love to talk to, Paige Jones of Michigan and get a little bit of her thoughts on the season and blah, blah, blah. So I started reaching out to the teams more so as I went on, just to be a little more formal about it. But yeah, it definitely started out as connections, like you said.
It's good to know, and it's always great to have guests on shows. And we actually have a chat room, and we have this question from Larry B. He says, what was your most memorable moment in a volleyball match?
In a volleyball match? That is a good question. I'm going to go back to high school on this one, actually, which is super lame. Move on, I know. But it was my... I want to say my junior year of high school. It was set point, and we were about to win our first conference title for the school in decades, if not ever. And I remember getting that last kill on the point, my coach running over, who was just such another dad figure for me, and running over, giving me a huge hug. I was bawling, gave me the trophy, earned MVP of that season. And I loved high school volleyball. I think it's so different than college when, it's more of a job at that point. But in high school, it was all fun. Yeah, it was a little bit of business to it, but I think I remember that one. I remember that match a lot, and I think that was really special for me and to leave a good legacy in high school.
It's great stuff, and thank you, Larry B, for asking that question. I'm glad to have asked that for you, and that is definitely a great moment. And when it comes to high school sports, you can't get those back, which is why my heart hurts for all of these high school athletes that are pretty much not being able to perform because of COVID and whatnot. But hopefully everything gets clear, and then everyone who's a senior gets to possibly get in a couple matches, maybe a little playoffs and whatnot. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely really tough for all those players, like you said, especially the seniors. I can't imagine, not having my senior year of high school to play, such a important year for, recruiting wise, but also just fun wise. You need to have your last season of a sport if you're not continuing to play. And yeah, my heart definitely goes out to all those athletes, especially in high school, that didn't get to compete in their last season. It is pretty heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and yeah, I think. But as everyone has once told me, as a past guest on Set Point, everything's going to be all right, and we will get through this. You just got to do your part and not be a dum-dum. So
exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and be kind as well. So so before we head to a commercial break, I actually have one last question for you, and I actually like to end the interview on a high note and a positive note. So this was actually inspired by one of my teammates at IE Sports Radio, but when this whole pandemic started, there was this one item in particular that just vanished off the shelves. No one in particular knew what happened to this one item when this whole pandemic was starting. Like, it just disappeared. Not even the smartest people at Stanford can figure out this question. So I need to know, Emily, when this whole pandemic started, did you have enough toilet paper?
Oh, my mother was prepared for this. I swear to God, months in advance. I hate to say it, but we were definitely toilet paper hoarders during this time. We had multiple, packs of them in the basement, and unfortunately, for other people, I know they didn't have any, but my household was, we were set on toilet paper for sure.
You gotta be prepared in those situations. So, hey, thank you very much, Emily, for being on here. It was great talking to you. Let's jump to a commercial break so I can give you a proper send-off. When we come back, we're going to be closing up here. So you're listening to Set Point right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey guys, it's Blake Henley, better known as H-Town Blake to some of you. Happy to announce that Bases Loaded is back in full force. We'll be bringing that high heat every Tuesday night here on IE Sports Radio. So come home, get ready, dig into that batter's box, and see if you can chase that high heat, baby. So we'll be coming to you live with all the stats, all the rundowns, all the division rivalries, and every team that's going to make the playoff push to get to that one and only October and get to the pinnacle of what baseball is, to hoist that Commissioner's Trophy when it's all said and done.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we are back with Set Point. You can check out all of our amazing shows here on Set Point, or on IE Sports Radio. Normally, Set Point would be going off right about now, because it would be 6 p.m. Pacific time. But since we're here at 1:02 p.m. Pacific time, 4:02 p.m. Eastern time, we don't have any shows going on as of right now. But later on today, we have the NorCal Faithful Sports Show with Danny, aka Big Dan, and he will talk all sorts of Northern California sports. And then later on today, as you just heard in that last commercial, we have Gloves Off with Mr. Marcus Los Great. He is in season 2 of his show. I actually do want to give Marcus a shout out because I actually got an email on this earlier today when I woke up. I checked my emails. I saw help congratulate Marcus Los Great on 1 year with IE Sports Radio. So I definitely want to give a round of applause and a congratulations to Marcus on a 1 year anniversary with IE Sports Radio. Yeah, and I also just want to say that Marcus is a one of the loyal listeners of Set Point. Like, I definitely appreciate him popping in the chat room. I know he's working every now and then, as well as mostly everyone at this hour, but I had to accommodate to Emily's work schedule and get her on today because it can be tough, but she was definitely a great interview, and she enjoyed the interview. Being on here as well. So, and here's some good news. Emily will be back next week for Set Point. We'll determine a time and a day for next week, but we will have her back next week. Next week we're going to talk some Big Ten volleyball for this upcoming season because next week the NCAA women's volleyball season begins. So there's that, and I'm really excited to have Emily back on for next week, and it's going to be a fun time. It's going to be more about the Big Ten Conference for this year, more so than her. Maybe we'll talk a little Northwestern volleyball, and I think it's going to be a great time. So I'm happy to have her back on for Set Point a second straight week, and I think it's going to be fun. So before we head out, I have to make note of our sponsors, and I probably should have made note of our sponsors early on, but it is what it is. So iSports Radio is the official sponsor of Legacy Financial. 2020 was indeed a tough year, and 2021 might be a tough year so far. However, staying positive, keeping your faith, and continuing to work hard is the goal. If you're ever in a financial struggle at the moment and you need some help, call 951-732-0130 or 510-928-2104 to book your appointment today. Andrew and Io are just two people on a mission to help families build a legacy. You can follow them on Twitter at legacy_uncut, and then you could follow them on Instagram at sims_uncut. So they're definitely worth the follow, and they will definitely help you out financially. As I say hello to Ben Suttereth, who just popped in the chat room. I appreciate you tuning in. And he says he's listening and working. Yeah, I'm kind of on a little earlier because I had to accommodate a guest, but she was definitely worth accommodating to, and she's going to be back next week. So just in case you're wondering, Ben, my guest Emily Ehman, the former Northwestern women's volleyball player, will be back next week. So that's something you can definitely note in your journal or your notes. But other than that, I think that's going to do it for today's show. I mean, there's nothing too much to talk about. There was University of San Diego's women's volleyball team making some schedule changes, but that's not really all overly important, as their schedule will now be, their starting schedule will be Sunday, January 24th at Gonzaga, and then Monday, January 25th at Gonzaga, and then another change will be Sunday, February 7th at St. Mary's, and then Monday, February 8th at home against St. Mary's, and then they also changed the BYU matchup at their place to Wednesday, March 17th at home, instead of being Friday, March 19th at home at San Diego. So, and this is just for the University of San Diego women's volleyball team, and it's not really too big of a deal. What is notable with the Toreros' schedule change is that they're playing most of their tough games in the latter part of the season. Their first challenge will be when they play at Santa Clara on Tuesday, February 16th, and Wednesday, February 17th, because Santa Clara returns a majority of their roster, and I saw them up close and personal back when Santa Clara played Long Beach State in the NIVC, which is basically the National Invitational Tournament. So there's that, and for San Diego's schedule, they play at Loyola Marymount, BYU, and Pepperdine the last 3 weeks of the season. So that's kind of surprising, but I guess it kind of works out. It kind of works out. And then I also noticed that San Diego and BYU are playing one game at San Diego and one game at BYU, because I guess it would be fair because both those teams are talented, and if one team had home court advantage, it wouldn't be fair to the other team. But It's good. I mean, it would also give San Diego enough time to travel from San Diego to BYU, because if you're going from Friday to Saturday, that's like a less than a 24-hour swing, and that could take a toll on a person's body. And then you also have to get screening as well. So I'm glad BYU and San Diego are accommodating to their schedules right now, as opposed to as the season's progressing, because otherwise there could be postponements, and we don't want postponements. So good job for San Diego for modifying their schedule. All right, so now that's going to be the end of Set Point. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to Larry B for popping in the chat room. Thank you to Ben Suttereth for popping in the chat room. And thank you to Marcus Losgreat, who popped in the chat room as well. And again, congratulations on 1 year anniversary of IE Sports Radio, Marcus. Really means a lot, and I'm glad you're able to tune in whenever you can. So, and thank you to everyone tuning in, whether you're listening live or you're listening on the replay. You could follow me on Twitter at Teran Rodriguez 1, and you could also follow Set Point on Twitter at set_point.ie. That's on Twitter, and you can follow my guest Emily Ehman on Twitter and on Instagram at Emily Ehman. Ehman is spelled E-H-M-A-N, and then her name, Emily, is spelled E-M-I-L-Y. So it's also in the description as well. And then you could also follow IE Sports Radio as a whole on Twitter and on Instagram at IE Sports Radio. And then you could also follow them and like them on Facebook, subscribe to them on YouTube, give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, do everything with IE Sports Radio. And definitely do give us a listen, because we're all a bunch of dedicated, hardworking sports fans that definitely love pushing out content. And that's going to do it. So without any further delay, it's time to drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you all once again for tuning into Set Point. I really appreciate it. I definitely want to give one more shout out to my guest, Emily Ehman, for being a guest here on Set Point. It really means a lot, and I'm glad she's going to be back next week for us to discuss the Big Ten volleyball season and to discuss some NCAA volleyball. So for Emily Ehman, everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourselves a great rest of the day. Definitely tune in to the NorCal Faithful Sports Show, which will be on at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And then Marcus Losgreat will be following that up with Gloves Off at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern time. Have yourselves a great rest of the day, and I'll see you Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Have a great day, everybody.